The morning sun cast sharp shadows across Camp Pendleton's primary firing range as Marines began arriving for monthly qualification day. Dust hung in the still air, while range safety flags snapped lazily against their poles. Sergeant Brooks emerged from the range office, carrying his clipboard and surveying the growing crowd of Marines assembling near the firing line. Brooks called for attention as he positioned himself at the center of the concrete pad. Today's qualification would test precision at multiple distances, he announced, starting with 200 yards and extending to 500. Wind conditions looked favorable, though that could change quickly given the coastal location. Each Marine would fire 10 rounds at each distance, with passing scores requiring 8 hits within the target rings. The Marines nodded their understanding while checking their equipment. Standard M4 rifles dominated the line as men adjusted slings and verified their ammunition loads. Brooks emphasized the importance of steady fundamentals and proper breathing techniques, especially given the recent command focus on marksmanship scores across the battalion. A distinctive sound drew attention from the far end of the range as someone approached carrying a large tactical case. Diana Castellanos walked steadily toward the firing line, her case clearly different from the standard weapon containers the other Marines carried. The case appeared heavier and more substantial than typical rifle storage. Marine Kowalski noticed her first and nudged his neighbor Torres. "Look at the new arrival," he said quietly. "Appears to be carrying something special in that oversized case." Torres glanced over and grinned as he observed the woman's approach. "Wonder what kind of tactical gear she thinks she needs for basic qualification." Diana reached the firing line and selected lane 7 without acknowledging the growing attention from nearby Marines. She placed her case on the concrete and began working the latches with methodical precision. The clicking sounds carried clearly in the morning air as other Marines paused their own preparations to watch. The case opened to reveal a rifle unlike anything the Marines had seen during standard qualification sessions. Bright orange polymer components dominated the weapon's appearance, contrasting sharply with the military green and black equipment surrounding it. The stock, foregrip, and various accessories featured the same vibrant orange coloring that immediately caught every eye on the range. Fleming joined Kowalski and Torres in staring at the unusual weapon. "That has to be some kind of sporting rifle," he said with disbelief evident in his voice. "Looks like something designed for hunting deer rather than military qualification." The orange color scheme resembled civilian hunting equipment more than standard military hardware. Diana continued her setup routine while ignoring the whispered comments from neighboring lanes. She extracted a sophisticated scope from the case and began mounting it to the rifle's rail system. The scope appeared significantly larger and more complex than standard military optics, with multiple adjustment dials and a substantial objective lens. Kowalski shook his head as he watched her work. "Sister, I think you might be at the wrong range," he called out loudly enough for others to hear. "Paintball Field is about 10 miles south of here." His comment drew chuckles from several Marines who had been observing the unusual rifle setup. The orange rifle's appearance became even more striking as Diana completed her assembly process. Every major component featured the bright coloring except for the barrel and bolt assembly, which remained standard black metal. The overall effect created a weapon that looked more like a custom sporting rifle than military equipment designed for combat applications. Torres leaned toward Fleming while keeping his voice pitched for the nearby Marines to hear. "Bet she ordered that from some tactical catalog," he said with obvious amusement. "Probably spent more on the paint job than most of us make in a month." The comment generated more laughter from the growing audience of Marines watching Diana's preparation. Diana opened a separate container and began removing specialized ammunition that appeared different from the standard rounds other Marines were loading. The cartridges looked longer and more precisely manufactured than typical military ammunition, with consistent brass casings that caught the morning sunlight. Brooks called for attention to resume the safety briefing while Marines reluctantly returned focus to their own equipment. He reviewed the commands for firing sequences and emphasized the importance of maintaining proper muzzle discipline throughout the exercise. Range safety would remain the top priority regardless of individual weapon configurations or personal equipment choices. The Marines began loading their rifles and settling into firing positions as Brooks prepared to commence the first sequence. Diana assumed a prone position in Lane 7, adjusting her rifle's bipod legs and settling behind the unusual orange weapon. Her movements appeared practiced and methodical as she established her shooting position. Kowalski glanced over at Diana's position one more time before focusing on his own target. "This should be entertaining," he muttered to Torres. "Going to be interesting watching someone try to qualify with a toy gun." His comment drew final chuckles from the Marines as Brooks raised his hand to signal the beginning of the first firing sequence at 200 yards. The range fell silent as Marines prepared for the command to commence firing, though several continued stealing glances at the bright orange rifle that had captured everyone's attention since Diana's arrival. Fleming positioned himself 2 lanes away from Diana and couldn't resist making additional observations about her equipment. "That scope probably costs more than my car payment," he announced to nearby Marines. "Look at all those adjustment knobs and dials. Appears to be designed for precision shooting competitions rather than military qualification standards." Diana methodically checked her rifle zero settings while the commentary continued around her. She made minor adjustments to the scope's elevation and windage controls with practiced efficiency. Her movements suggested familiarity with the equipment that contradicted the Marines' assumptions about civilian sporting goods. Torres finished loading his magazine and noticed Diana's ammunition again. "Those cartridges definitely look custom-loaded," he observed to Kowalski. "Probably hand-selected brass cases and precision bullets designed for accuracy competitions. No wonder she's confident enough to bring specialized equipment to military qualification." Brooks walked down the firing line, conducting final safety inspections while Marines settled into their positions. He paused briefly at Diana's lane to observe her unusual rifle configuration, but made no comment about the orange coloring or specialized optics. His inspection focused on standard safety protocols regardless of individual weapon choices. The 200-yard targets stood ready downrange while wind flags indicated minimal air movement. Conditions appeared optimal for precision shooting as Brooks returned to his position at the firing line command post. He raised his clipboard and prepared to issue the command sequence that would begin the qualification process. Kowalski adjusted his position and took a final look at Diana's setup. "Hope you've been practicing with that museum piece," he called out with obvious skepticism. "These targets don't care how expensive your equipment looks if you can't hit them consistently." Several Marines nodded their agreement while settling behind their own standard military rifles. Diana completed her final equipment checks and assumed her firing position without responding to the continued commentary. She settled behind the orange rifle with her cheek pressed firmly against the stock, establishing the consistent sight picture that precision shooting demanded. Her breathing slowed and became more controlled as she prepared for the firing sequence. Fleming made one last observation about the distinctive weapon. "But she's never fired under any kind of pressure before," he said to Torres. "Competition shooting is completely different from military qualification standards. All that fancy equipment won't help if she gets nervous when other people are watching her performance." The morning sun climbed higher and began creating heat shimmer that would affect long-distance shooting later in the session. Brooks noted the changing conditions and decided to commence the first sequence before thermal effects could impact accuracy at the longer ranges they would attempt. Marines across the firing line made final adjustments to their equipment while awaiting the command to begin shooting. Standard M4 rifles dominated the line with their familiar black polymer and metal construction, making Diana's orange weapon even more conspicuous among the conventional military hardware surrounding it. Torres loaded his final round and closed his rifle's bolt with a distinctive metallic sound that echoed down the firing line. Ready to see if all that specialized equipment actually works, he announced loudly enough for Diana to hear. Going to be interesting comparing her results with standard military rifles and ammunition. Brooks raised his hand and called for attention as the qualification session prepared to begin. All Marines would fire 10 rounds at the 200-yard targets, he announced. Firing would commence on his command with no time limit for individual shots. Precision and accuracy would determine qualification scores rather than speed of engagement. Diana adjusted her position one final time and verified her scope settings while the range prepared for the first firing sequence. The orange rifle's distinctive appearance continued drawing attention from Marines who had never seen such specialized equipment during standard qualification exercises. Brooks gave the command to commence firing, and Marines began engaging the 200-yard targets with methodical precision. The familiar crack of M4 rifles echoed across the range as each shooter settled into their individual rhythm. Standard military shooting techniques dominated the firing line as Marines applied their training to achieve qualifying scores. Diana's orange rifle produced a distinctly different sound when she fired her first shot. The report seemed sharper and more controlled than the surrounding M4s, drawing immediate attention from nearby lanes. Fleming paused between his own shots to observe her unusual weapons performance during the initial engagement sequence. The bright orange components continued catching sunlight as Diana cycled her bolt and prepared for her second shot. Her movements appeared deliberate and practiced as she settled back into position behind the distinctive rifle. The specialized scope and equipment setup looked even more elaborate compared to the standard military hardware surrounding her position. Fleming couldn't resist making another observation about the unconventional equipment. "Looks like she's trying to hunt deer with a Nerf gun," he announced loudly enough for multiple Marines to hear. "That orange paint job probably scares away half the targets before she even starts shooting." His comment drew chuckles from several shooters who glanced over at Diana's position. Diana fired her remaining shots in the sequence, while ignoring the continued commentary about her rifle's appearance. Each shot followed the same methodical pattern of careful aiming and controlled breathing that characterized precision shooting techniques. Her bolt manipulation remained smooth and consistent throughout the firing string. Ceasefire was called, and Marines began observing their targets through binoculars to assess their shooting performance. Standard groups appeared scattered across the target faces, as expected for routine qualification shooting. Most Marines achieved adequate hit ratios within the required scoring rings, despite some shots landing outside optimal placement areas. Torres raised his binoculars to examine Diana's target and immediately noticed something unexpected. Her 3 bullet holes appeared clustered tightly in the center scoring area, creating a group significantly smaller than typical qualification results. The precision suggested either exceptional shooting skill or remarkable beginner's luck with the specialized equipment. "That's probably just beginner's luck," Torres announced to Kowalski while continuing to study Diana's target. "Sometimes new shooters get lucky with their first few shots before reality sets in." Her specialized ammunition and fancy scope probably helped with that initial group, but it won't last through longer distances. Brooks called for the range to transition to 300-yard targets as wind conditions began shifting across the coastal firing area. Flags started showing irregular movement patterns that would challenge the Marines' windage estimation abilities. The increased distance combined with changing wind would test shooting skills more thoroughly than the initial 200-yard sequence. Marines began adjusting their sights for the longer distance while discussing the wind conditions they would face. 300 yards required more precise estimation of environmental factors that could affect bullet trajectory. Several shooters expressed concern about maintaining adequate scores as conditions became more challenging throughout the qualification session. Diana methodically adjusted her scope's elevation setting for the increased distance while wind flags showed growing inconsistency in direction and speed. She made additional windage corrections that suggested familiarity with reading environmental conditions. Her adjustments appeared more comprehensive than the simple sight changes other Marines were making. The wind picked up noticeably as Marines settled into position for the 300-yard sequence. Flags now showed definite patterns that would require careful compensation to maintain accuracy. Brooks observed the conditions and noted that shooting would become significantly more difficult as the morning progressed. Fleming struggled with his windage calculations as he prepared for the longer distance engagement. The shifting conditions made estimation difficult even for experienced shooters using standard techniques. His first shots at 300 yards scattered wider than his 200-yard performance, reflecting the increased challenge of environmental factors. Diana's first shot at 300 yards landed precisely in the center scoring area despite the challenging wind conditions. Her scope adjustments appear to have compensated perfectly for both distance and environmental factors. The precision suggested either exceptional skill or sophisticated equipment capabilities that exceeded standard military hardware. Torres fired his string at 300 yards and watched his shot spread across a much wider area than his previous distance. The wind conditions were affecting everyone's accuracy as Marines struggled with environmental calculations. His group reflected the typical degradation in precision that longer distances and wind created for qualification shooting. Kowalski finished his sequence and observed the general decline in accuracy among Marines fighting the wind conditions. 300 yards with shifting air currents challenged even experienced shooters using proven techniques. He glanced over at Diana's target again and noticed her group remained tight despite the same environmental factors affecting everyone else. The ceasefire command allowed Marines to assess their 300-yard performance through binoculars. Most targets showed the expected wider groups that environmental conditions created at longer distances. Standard qualification shooting typically produced acceptable but scattered results when wind and distance combined to challenge shooter abilities. Diana's target revealed another precisely clustered group in the center scoring area that seemed unaffected by the wind conditions troubling other Marines. Her shooting continued demonstrating consistency that contrasted sharply with typical qualification results. The precision appeared even more remarkable given the challenging environmental factors everyone faced. Kowalski approached Diana during the break between firing sequences, his curiosity finally overcoming his skepticism about her unusual equipment. "Where did you get your military training?" he asked while examining her rifle more closely. "That shooting doesn't look like standard civilian marksmanship or basic military instruction. Your technique suggests more advanced preparation than typical recreational shooting." Diana responded minimally, while focusing on cleaning her rifle's bolt and checking for any fouling that might affect accuracy. "Various military installations over several years," she said without providing specific details about units or training programs. Her attention remained focused on equipment maintenance rather than expanding on her background or experience. The brief response only increased Kowalski's curiosity about her training and qualifications. Several years suggested more extensive military involvement than civilian recreational shooting could provide. Her equipment and shooting performance supported claims of advanced training, though she seemed reluctant to discuss specifics about her background or current status. Brooks announced the transition to 500-yard precision shooting that would conclude the qualification session. The longer distance would challenge every Marine's fundamental shooting abilities while environmental factors continued affecting accuracy. He warned that 500 yards separated competent shooters from truly skilled marksmen, especially given current wind conditions. Marines expressed visible concern about the 500-yard requirement as they prepared equipment for the final distance. Many struggled with 300 yards in current conditions, making 500 seem nearly impossible for standard qualification scores. The distance would test shooting abilities to their maximum extent using conventional military techniques and equipment. Torres examined his ammunition and worried about maintaining adequate accuracy at 500 yards. The wind conditions made precise shooting extremely difficult even for experienced Marines. He glanced at Diana's consistent performance and decided to make an interesting proposition to other Marines watching her unusual rifle setup. "$20, says the girl with the toy rifle, doesn't even hit the target at 500 yards. Torres announced loudly enough for nearby Marines to hear his challenge. Current conditions are making this difficult for everyone, and that sporting equipment won't help when reality sets in. Several Marines immediately expressed interest in joining the betting pool against Diana's chances. Fleming eagerly joined the wager, while other Marines began discussing odds and additional side bets. The consensus held that 500 yards would expose the limitations of civilian equipment and recreational training. Diana's earlier success appeared to be equipment-assisted luck that wouldn't survive the ultimate distance challenge. Diana overhead the betting activity, but remained focused on preparing her rifle for the 500-yard sequence. Her scope adjustments became more deliberate as she calculated settings for the significantly increased distance. The precision of her preparation suggested experience with long-range shooting that contradicted the Marines' assumptions about her background. Other Marines gathered around Torres to join the betting pool as confidence grew that Diana would struggle with 500-yard shooting. The wind conditions and extended distance seemed certain to overwhelm whatever advantages her specialized equipment might provide. The consensus supported Torres' assessment that reality would finally reveal the limitations of her unconventional approach. Diana completed her rifle preparation and settled into position for the 500-yard sequence while the betting discussion continued around her. Her focus intensity appeared to increase as she blocked out the distractions and concentrated on the challenging shot requirements. The distance would indeed separate recreational shooters from serious marksmen, as Brooks had warned. Range personnel deployed the 500-yard targets as Marines watched with growing apprehension about the qualification challenge ahead. The distant target frames appeared significantly smaller than previous distances, creating visual difficulty even with standard military optics. Several Marines expressed doubt about their ability to achieve passing scores at the extended range. Wind conditions deteriorated further as coastal air currents created increasingly complex patterns across the firing range. Flags showed conflicting directions at different points along the range, indicating wind shear that would make accurate shooting extremely challenging. Brooks observed the conditions and warned Marines that environmental factors would severely test their fundamental marksmanship abilities. Torres stepped up as the first shooter in the sequence, his confidence from earlier betting now tempered by the daunting distance and challenging conditions. 500 yards represented the outer limit of effective shooting for most Marines using standard techniques and equipment. He settled into position behind his M4 rifle and attempted to calculate windage adjustments for the complex air currents. His first shot missed the target completely as wind caught the bullet and carried it wide of the intended impact area. Torres cursed under his breath and made corrections for his second attempt, but the shifting conditions made accurate compensation nearly impossible. 3 more shots resulted in only one marginal hit on the target edge, far from acceptable qualification standards. Torres continued struggling through his 10-round allocation with disappointing results. The combination of distance and environmental factors overwhelmed his shooting abilities despite years of military training. His final tally showed 3 hits total, with only one landing in a scoring area that would contribute toward qualification requirements. "That distance is brutal with these wind conditions," Torres announced as he cleared his rifle and stepped back from the firing line. Even experienced shooters would have difficulty making consistent hits in these environmental factors. The 500-yard requirement seemed designed to challenge the limits of standard military marksmanship training. Kowalski took his turn at the firing line, while other Marines observed Torres' disappointing performance with growing concern. The wind patterns appeared to be worsening rather than stabilizing, creating even more difficult conditions for accurate long-range shooting. Several Marines began discussing whether qualification standards should be adjusted given the challenging environmental factors. Kowalski fired methodically through his sequence, achieving better results than Torres, but still struggling significantly with the distance and wind combination. His shots scattered across the target face with only 3 landing in acceptable scoring areas. The performance represented competent shooting under difficult conditions, though far from the precision that advanced marksmanship demanded. 3 out of 10 at 500 yards in this wind, Kowalski announced as he finished his sequence. That's about what anyone should expect with standard equipment and training. The distance and environmental factors are beyond what normal qualification shooting can reasonably accomplish. He seemed satisfied with his results given the challenging circumstances. Fleming approached the firing line next while wind flags continued showing the complex patterns that had troubled previous shooters. His confidence appeared shaken by watching 2 experienced Marines struggle with conditions that exceeded typical qualification parameters. The 500-yard distance represented a significant step beyond the 300-yard shooting that had already challenged most Marines. Fleming's shooting performance reflected the same difficulties that had affected Torres and Kowalski before him. Wind compensation proved nearly impossible to calculate accurately as conditions shifted unpredictably during his firing sequence. His shots scattered widely with only 2 hits registering on the target face, neither in optimal scoring locations. 2 hits out of 10, Fleming announced with obvious frustration as he completed his sequence. This wind is impossible to read consistently, and the distance makes everything more difficult. He examined his rifle as if equipment might explain his poor performance, though the same conditions were affecting every Marine attempting the 500-yard challenge. These conditions are making qualification nearly impossible for everyone, Fleming continued while observing the wind flags. Standard military equipment and training aren't designed for this kind of environmental challenge. His comments reflected the general sentiment among Marines who had watched 3 shooters struggle significantly with the demanding requirements. Diana approached the firing line while Marines gathered behind her position to observe what they expected would be a spectacular failure. The betting pool participants showed particular interest in watching her attempt the 500-yard sequence that had defeated experienced Marines using conventional equipment and techniques. Here comes the main event, Torres announced to the growing group of observers. Let's see how that toy rifle performs when reality sets in. The Marines positioned themselves where they could clearly observe both Diana's shooting process and her target results through binoculars. Diana settled into position behind her orange rifle with the same methodical preparation she had demonstrated throughout the session. Her scope adjustments appeared more extensive than previous distances as she calculated settings for the significantly increased range. The precision of her preparation contrasted sharply with the hasty adjustments other Marines had attempted. The Marines watched expectantly as Diana fired her first shot at 500 yards. The distinctive report of her rifle cut through the morning air, while observers immediately raised binoculars to examine her target. Range personnel confirmed the impact location through their spotting scope positioned near the target line. Perfect center hit, 10 ring, the range spotter called back toward the firing line. Diana's first shot had landed precisely in the highest scoring area despite the wind conditions that had troubled every previous shooter. The accuracy seemed impossible given the environmental factors that had caused widespread misses among experienced Marines. Torres shook his head in disbelief while examining Diana's target through binoculars. That has to be pure luck, he announced to other Marines. Nobody achieves that kind of precision on their first shot at 500 yards in these conditions. One perfect hit doesn't prove anything except random chance working in her favor. Fleming agreed with Torres' assessment while continuing to observe Diana's position through binoculars. She probably spent months practicing at exactly this distance, he suggested to nearby Marines. All that specialized equipment and preparation might work for one familiar range setting, but won't translate to different conditions or distances. Diana chambered her second round and settled back into position while Marines maintained their skeptical commentary. Her breathing pattern remained controlled and deliberate as she aimed through her specialized scope. The environmental factors that had troubled previous shooters appeared to have minimal effect on her shooting process. Her second shot produced another perfect center hit that landed within inches of her first bullet hole. Range personnel confirmed the precision through their spotting scope, while Marines stared in growing amazement. 2 consecutive perfect hits at 500 yards exceeded what anyone expected under current conditions. The mockery among observing Marines quieted noticeably as Diana's shooting performance continued, defying their expectations. Her precision appeared genuine rather than lucky, though the consistency seemed impossible given the challenging distance and environmental factors. Several Marines began paying closer attention to her technique and equipment setup. Kowalski studied Diana's position more carefully while she prepared for her third shot. Her body position and rifle support appeared identical to standard military techniques, though executed with exceptional consistency. The specialized equipment might provide advantages, but her fundamental shooting skills seemed to exceed typical recreational training levels. Diana's third shot landed precisely with her previous 2 hits, creating a tight group in the target's center scoring area. The consistency eliminated any possibility of random luck and suggested shooting abilities far beyond standard qualification requirements. Marines began questioning their assumptions about her background and training. "How is she doing that?" Fleming asked quietly while observing the impossible precision. Standard civilian training doesn't produce that kind of accuracy, and military basic marksmanship doesn't reach those levels either. Her shooting performance suggested advanced training that exceeded typical recreational or standard military instruction. Diana continued firing with the same methodical precision, landing her 4th and 5th shots in the same tight center group. Each shot demonstrated consistency that seemed unaffected by the environmental factors troubling experienced Marines. Her performance revealed shooting abilities that challenged every assumption about civilian capabilities. Brooks approached with powerful binoculars to personally verify the exceptional shooting performance he had been observing from the command post. 5 consecutive shots in the 10 ring at 500 yards represented precision that exceeded normal qualification standards by significant margins. The accuracy demanded investigation of her training background and qualifications. All 5 shots center mass, 10 ring, Brooks announced after confirming Diana's target through binoculars. "I've never seen civilian shooting at that level during standard qualification sessions." Her performance suggests training that goes far beyond recreational marksmanship or basic military instruction. Marines gathered around Brooks, demanding to examine Diana's target more closely through the range binoculars. The precision appeared almost impossible given current environmental conditions and the challenging distance involved. Several Marines expressed disbelief that any civilian shooter could achieve such consistent accuracy under demanding circumstances. Torres examined the target through high-powered optics and shook his head in amazement. "All 5 shots could be covered with a quarter," he announced to other Marines. "That's not normal civilian shooting, and it's beyond what most Marines achieve even under optimal conditions." Her accuracy suggested professional training levels. "Let me see that ammunition," Torres demanded while approaching Diana's position. "You must be shooting something enhanced or modified that isn't standard issue. No civilian loads produce that kind of precision at 500 yards, especially in these wind conditions." He suspected specialized ammunition might explain her exceptional performance. Diana calmly opened her ammunition container and allowed Torres to examine the cartridges she had been firing. The rounds appeared completely standard with normal brass cases and typical bullet configurations. Nothing about the ammunition suggested enhancement or modification that would provide accuracy advantages over standard military loads. "These are just normal match-grade cartridges," Torres announced after thorough examination. "Nothing special or enhanced about them that would explain that kind of precision." The ammunition appeared identical to standard military issue, except for consistent manufacturing quality that characterized match-grade loads. Fleming suggested another explanation for Diana's exceptional shooting performance while examining her rifle more closely. "She's probably been practicing this exact distance for months or years," he told other Marines. "All that preparation and specialized equipment might work for familiar conditions, but it wouldn't translate to different ranges or environments. Brooks decided the exceptional shooting performance warranted investigation of Diana's background and training credentials. Precision at this level suggested military training beyond standard instruction, though her status remained unclear. He announced his intention to research her qualifications and verify her authorization for range use. "I need to check your training records and background," Brooks informed Diana, while other Marines continued debating her shooting abilities. Performance like that requires verification of qualifications and proper authorization for range access. Your shooting exceeds normal civilian capabilities and suggests advanced military training. Diana remained calm, while Marines debated amongst themselves about possible explanations for her exceptional shooting performance. Her demeanor suggested confidence that background investigation would verify her qualifications rather than reveal any improper range access or training claims. "Who trained you, and where did you learn to shoot like that?" Kowalski demanded while other Marines gathered closer to Diana's position. "That precision doesn't come from recreational shooting or basic military training. Your abilities suggest specialized instruction that goes far beyond normal civilian or standard military programs." Diana mentioned training at various military installations over several years without providing specific details about units, instructors, or programs involved. Her response remained deliberately vague while confirming military involvement rather than civilian recreational training. The minimal information only increased Marine curiosity about her actual background and current status. "Several years at different military installations," Fleming repeated while pressing for more specific information. "That suggests extensive involvement beyond standard training programs. Which units and what kind of specialized instruction did you receive to develop this level of precision shooting ability?" Marines gathered closer while continuing to press Diana for details about her training background and current military status. The exceptional shooting performance demanded explanation that her minimal responses hadn't provided. Several Marines began speculating about possible secret training programs or specialized civilian instruction that might produce such extraordinary marksmanship abilities. Brooks walked back toward the range office while Diana's exceptional shooting performance continued generating intense discussion among the Marines gathered around her position. The precision she had demonstrated exceeded anything he had witnessed during standard qualification sessions, demanding immediate investigation of her background and training credentials. His computer terminal would provide access to military databases that might explain her extraordinary marksmanship abilities. Meanwhile, the Marines surrounded Diana's firing position with growing demands for explanations about her shooting performance and military background. Kowalski positioned himself directly beside her lane while Torres and Fleming blocked her exit routes. The group's skepticism had transformed into aggressive questioning as they struggled to understand how civilian training could produce such exceptional accuracy. "You have to be using some kind of special military equipment that isn't available to regular Marines," Kowalski accused while examining her orange rifle more closely. "That precision doesn't come from standard hardware, no matter how much specialized training someone receives. There must be enhanced components or modified ammunition that provides unfair advantages over conventional military equipment." Diana calmly offered to let them examine and fire her rifle themselves if they questioned whether equipment advantages explained her shooting performance. The weapon used standard military specifications with no modifications beyond the distinctive orange coloring, she explained. Any qualified Marine should be able to achieve similar results using proper technique and environmental compensation. Torres immediately accepted her challenge while expressing confidence that he would duplicate her precision once he had access to her specialized equipment. The rifle's advanced scope and custom configuration obviously provided significant advantages over standard military hardware. He positioned himself behind her orange weapon and attempted to establish the same shooting position she had demonstrated. Diana assisted Torres with scope adjustments and sight picture alignment while he prepared to fire the 500-yard target. Her coaching focused on breathing techniques and trigger control that characterize precision shooting fundamentals. The instruction appeared genuine as she helped him optimize the rifle setup for maximum accuracy potential. Torres fired 3 carefully aimed shots using Diana's orange rifle, while other Marines observe his performance through binoculars. His shots scattered across the target with only one marginal hit registering in a scoring area. The precision that Diana had achieved seemed impossible to duplicate even with access to her specialized equipment and scope system. Fleming demanded his turn with the rifle after Torres' disappointing performance failed to explain Diana's exceptional accuracy. The equipment obviously required specific training and familiarity that Torres lacked, he reasoned. Advanced hardware needed proper instruction and practice to achieve its full potential for precision shooting applications. Fleming's shooting attempt produced even worse results than Torres had achieved using Diana's rifle. His shots missed the target completely despite careful aiming and Diana's continued coaching about scope use and environmental compensation. The specialized equipment provided no apparent advantage when used by Marines trained on conventional military hardware. Brooks accessed his computer terminal and began searching military databases for Diana's service records and training background. Initial queries returned basic information showing her current status as a civilian contractor with range access authorization. The designation seemed inconsistent with the exceptional shooting abilities she had demonstrated during qualification exercises. Diana continued firing at extended ranges while the Marines struggled to understand her capabilities using their own experience as reference points. Range personnel had deployed 600-yard targets at her request, extending the challenge beyond standard qualification requirements. Her first shots at the increased distance landed with the same precision she had shown at 500 yards. Computer searches revealed extensive training certifications from multiple advanced military programs spread across several years of service. Brooks discovered records indicating specialized instruction at facilities including Quantico, Fort Bragg, and Camp Pendleton's own advanced marksmanship programs. The documentation suggested involvement with elite training that exceeded standard military instruction. Torres returned Diana's rifle while expressing complete bewilderment about her shooting abilities. The equipment provided no special advantages that explained her precision, he admitted to other Marines. Her accuracy appeared to result from superior technique and training rather than enhanced hardware or modified ammunition. The admission undermined their assumptions about civilian limitations. Fleming examined Diana's shooting technique more carefully while she continued engaging 600-yard targets with consistent precision. Her body position and rifle support appeared identical to standard military methods, though executed with exceptional consistency. The fundamentals seemed familiar despite producing results far beyond normal capabilities. A growing crowd of Marines from other firing lanes gathered to observe the unusual demonstration of precision shooting occurring at Diana's position. Word had spread throughout the range about civilian shooter achieving impossible accuracy under challenging conditions. Several Marines abandoned their own qualification exercises to witness the exceptional marksmanship display. "Where exactly did you receive training that produces shooting like this?" Torres demanded while the crowd of observers continued growing. "Civilian programs don't develop these capabilities, and standard military instruction doesn't reach those precision levels. Your background must include specialized programs that go far beyond normal training opportunities." Diana responded that her training had occurred at various military installations over several years, without providing specific details about units or programs involved. The experience included multiple deployments and assignments that required advanced marksmanship capabilities. Her response remained deliberately general, while confirming extensive military involvement rather than civilian recreational training. Brooks discovered references to specialized program participation in Diana's records, though specific details remained classified above his access level. Computer queries indicated involvement with programs requiring higher clearance verification than standard range personnel possessed. The security restrictions suggested training backgrounds that exceeded normal military instruction programs. Several years of deployments and assignments, Fleming repeated while pressing for more specific information about her military service. That sounds like extensive operational experience rather than standard training programs. Which units provided advanced marksmanship instruction, and what kind of specialized missions required that level of precision shooting capability? Diana's 600-yard shooting continued demonstrating the same impossible precision that had amazed Marines at closer distances. Each shot landed in the target's center scoring area despite environmental conditions that made accurate shooting extremely challenging. Her consistency appeared unaffected by distance, wind, or the growing pressure from increasingly aggressive questioning. Marines attempted the same 600-yard distance using their standard rifles and conventional techniques, while Diana's performance provided an impossible standard for comparison. Their shots scattered wildly as distance and environmental factors overwhelmed normal military marksmanship training. Even experienced Marines struggled to achieve basic hits at the extended range. Brooks attempted higher-level database access to investigate Diana's specialized training background more thoroughly. Computer systems indicated her records required base commander authorization to view complete service history and program participation details. The security restrictions suggested involvement with classified programs that exceeded normal military training documentation. Why won't you tell us which specific units you served with and what kind of training you received? Kowalski demanded while the crowd of observing Marines grew increasingly frustrated with her minimal responses. Your shooting abilities require explanation beyond vague references to military installations and deployments. The precision demands specific program identification and instructor verification. Diana mentioned serving with multiple units over her career without providing unit designations or operational details that Marines requested. Her assignments had required advanced marksmanship capabilities for specialized missions, she explained. The response maintained operational security protocols while confirming military rather than civilian training background. Fleming's frustration escalated into open aggression as Diana continued providing minimal information about her background and qualifications. What gives you the right to use Marine Corps firing ranges if you won't identify your units or training programs? He challenged. Civilian contractors should be restricted to their own facilities rather than accessing military training resources. Torres joined Fleming's aggressive questioning while demanding specific unit names and deployment information that would verify Diana's claims about military service. Vague references to multiple assignments weren't sufficient documentation for range access, he argued. Military facilities required proper identification and verification of training credentials. The computer terminal displayed security warnings as Brooks attempted to access Diana's complete service records through higher-level military databases. Her file required clearance verification beyond range personnel authorization, indicating involvement with programs classified above standard military training documentation. The restrictions deepened the mystery rather than providing requested background information. Diana maintained her calm demeanor while Marines became increasingly aggressive in their demands for specific information about her military service and training background. Her shooting continued demonstrating impossible precision that challenged every assumption about civilian capabilities. The exceptional performance demanded explanations that her security protocols prevented her from providing. Marines from across the firing range abandoned their own exercises to observe the confrontation developing around Diana's position. The crowd included senior non-commissioned officers attracted by reports of exceptional civilian shooting and growing tensions between Diana and the Marines questioning her qualifications. "This is ridiculous," Fleming announced to the gathering crowd while pointing at Diana's continuing precision shooting. She shows up with toy gun equipment, refuses to identify her training background, and somehow shoots better than Marines with years of experience. Something doesn't add up about this entire situation. Brooks returned from the range office with troubling information about Diana's restricted service records and security clearance requirements. Her background investigation had encountered classified barriers that prevented complete verification of training and qualifications. The computer restrictions suggested involvement with programs beyond standard military documentation. The investigation is encountering security restrictions that require base commander authorization, Brooks announced to the assembled Marines. Her records indicate specialized program participation that exceeds normal access levels. Complete verification of her background and training credentials will require higher authority approval than range personnel possess. Torres demanded immediate contact with base command to resolve questions about Diana's qualifications and range access authorization. The exceptional shooting performance, combined with restricted service records, created legitimate concerns about proper verification procedures. Military facilities required complete documentation before authorizing access to training resources. Diana continued her methodical shooting routine while tensions escalated around her position and Marines debated appropriate responses to the developing situation. Her precision remained unaffected by the growing confrontation as shot after shot landed perfectly despite challenging conditions. The consistency suggested training backgrounds that her security restrictions prevented her from discussing with unauthorized personnel. Colonel Martinez received Brooks' emergency call while reviewing training reports in his base headquarters office. A civilian contractor was demonstrating exceptional shooting abilities that exceeded normal qualification standards, creating questions about proper verification and security protocols. The unusual situation required immediate command attention to resolve concerns about range access and training program integrity. Martinez drove quickly to the firing range while considering potential explanations for the reported shooting performance and security complications. Civilian contractors rarely possessed marksmanship abilities that impressed experienced Marines, suggesting either enhanced equipment or advanced training backgrounds that warranted investigation. His arrival would provide command authority necessary to resolve questions about proper authorization and facility access. The situation at the range had escalated significantly during the time required for Martinez to respond to Brooks' emergency call. Marines from across the facility had gathered around Diana's firing position, creating a crowd that interfered with normal training operations. Torres and Kowalski had positioned themselves directly beside her lane while demanding specific information about her military service and training background. Fleming had become increasingly aggressive in questioning Diana's authority to use Marine Corps training facilities without providing complete documentation of her qualifications. His challenges had attracted support from other Marines who shared concerns about civilian access to military resources. The confrontation had evolved beyond simple curiosity into open hostility about proper verification procedures. Diana continued her methodical shooting routine while the crowd of Marines grew larger and more demanding around her position. Her precision remained unaffected by the increasing pressure and aggressive questioning from Marines who couldn't understand her exceptional abilities. Each shot landed perfectly despite challenging environmental conditions and growing tensions among the assembled personnel. Martinez arrived at the range and immediately observed the unusual situation developing around one particular firing lane. A significant crowd of Marines had abandoned their own training exercises to gather around a civilian contractor whose shooting performance had apparently generated intense interest. The disruption to normal range operations required immediate command intervention to restore proper training protocols. Brooks approached Martinez with obvious relief as command authority arrived to address the complex situation that had developed beyond his capability to resolve. The civilian contractor's exceptional shooting abilities had generated security concerns when background investigation encountered classified restrictions. Computer access limitations prevented complete verification of her training credentials and range authorization. Colonel Martinez examined Diana's identification cards and range qualification paperwork, while Marines continued their aggressive questioning around her firing position. Her documentation appeared complete and properly authorized, though the exceptional shooting performance suggested advanced training that exceeded typical civilian contractor capabilities. The situation required direct investigation to resolve concerns about proper facility access and security protocols. Martinez accessed his command-level computer terminal to investigate Diana's complete service records using authorization that exceeded standard range personnel clearance levels. The higher access revealed classified information that had been restricted from Brooks' earlier investigation attempts. Security barriers immediately disappeared when proper command clearance was applied to the database queries. Diana's complete military service record appeared on Martinez's screen as classified restrictions were bypassed through his command authorization. The comprehensive documentation revealed extensive, specialized training and current assignment details that had been hidden from lower-level database access. Martinez read through the classified information while his expression changed from skeptical concern to complete amazement. Her service record indicated current active duty status as Gunnery Sergeant Diana Castellanos, with assignment to Special Operations Training Group at Marine Corps Base Quantico. Specialized qualifications included Chief Instructor Certification for Scout Sniper School and Advanced Marksmanship Program Development responsibilities. The documentation revealed elite status that completely contradicted civilian contractor assumptions. Diana demonstrated her shooting abilities at 700 yards while Martinez continued reading through her classified service record and current mission assignment details. Her shots landed with the same impossible precision that had amazed Marines throughout the qualification session. The accuracy appeared routine rather than exceptional when viewed within context of her actual military status and specialized training background. Martinez completed his review of Diana's complete service record and current assignment before approaching her position to address the situation directly. Her presence at basic qualification ranges represented official business related to equipment testing and training program evaluation rather than unauthorized civilian access. The Marine's assumptions about her status had been completely incorrect from the beginning. He called Diana aside for private conversation away from the crowd of Marines, who continued their aggressive questioning and demands for background information. Command-level discussion was required to address her classified mission assignment and the security complications created by their unauthorized investigation attempts. The situation demanded immediate clarification of proper protocols and authority relationships. Diana confirmed her identity and current assignment during the private conversation with Martinez. She was conducting official evaluation of experimental marksmanship equipment and training methodologies under direct authorization from Quantico headquarters. Her apparent civilian contractor status provided cover for observing standard Marine qualification procedures without influencing normal training protocols. The bright orange rifle represented experimental equipment being evaluated for potential adoption throughout Marine Corps training programs. Diana explained to Martinez. Her presence at basic qualification ranges allowed assessment of equipment performance and training methodology effectiveness under realistic field conditions. Standard Marines provided authentic evaluation subjects who would react normally to new equipment designs and training approaches. Diana's exceptional shooting performance served dual purposes of equipment testing and personnel assessment during the evaluation period. Her mission included observing Marine reactions to unconventional equipment and documenting their assumptions about civilian capabilities. The aggressive questioning and security investigation attempts had provided valuable data about standard Marine attitudes toward advanced training programs. Martinez returned to the crowd of Marines gathered around Diana's firing position with complete understanding of the actual situation and appropriate command response. The Marines had unknowingly subjected a senior non-commissioned officer and elite instructor to aggressive questioning while she conducted official evaluation business. Immediate correction of their behavior and recognition of proper authority relationships was required. Marines will come to attention, Martinez commanded as he approached the crowd that had been aggressively questioning Diana throughout the morning. The situation required immediate establishment of proper military courtesy and recognition of authority relationships that had been violated through their unauthorized investigation attempts. Command authority would now resolve all questions about qualifications and range access. The assembled Marines immediately responded to Martinez's command by assuming proper military bearing, while he prepared to address their behavior and correct their fundamental misunderstandings about Diana's status. Their aggressive questioning and demands for information had violated proper protocols when directed towards superior military personnel conducting official duties. You have been questioning Gunnery Sergeant Diana Castellanos, current chief instructor at Scout Sniper School and assigned to Special Operations Training Group for Advanced Training Program Development, Martinez announced to the stunned Marines. Her presence here represents official evaluation business authorized directly from Quantico headquarters, not civilian contractor activity requiring your investigation or approval. Kowalski's face showed complete shock as he realized he had been mocking and aggressively questioning a superior, non-commissioned officer throughout the morning. His comments about toy guns and civilian training had been directed toward one of the Marine Corps' most elite marksmanship instructors. The revelation exposed his complete failure to recognize proper military authority and demonstrate appropriate courtesy. Torres understood that his betting pool had targeted one of the Corps' top precision shooting experts whose capabilities far exceeded standard Marine qualification requirements. His $20 wager against her hitting targets represented fundamental ignorance about advanced military training and specialized marksmanship programs. The embarrassment of his assumptions created visible distress as he processed the revelation. Fleming comprehended that his repeated comments about hunting rifles and civilian equipment had been directed toward experimental military technology under evaluation for Corps-wide adoption. His dismissive remarks about sporting goods and recreational training had targeted cutting-edge development programs designed to enhance Marine marksmanship capabilities. The magnitude of his misunderstanding became painfully apparent. Diana requested permission to demonstrate her equipment capabilities at maximum effective range to complete her evaluation protocol. 800-yard targets would provide final data points for experimental rifle performance under challenging field conditions. Martinez authorized the demonstration while assembled Marines watched with completely transformed understanding of her abilities and mission. Her shots at 800 yards landed with the same precision that had characterized her performance throughout the qualification session. The extraordinary accuracy now appeared routine rather than impossible when understood within context of her elite training and specialized equipment evaluation responsibilities. Each perfect hit confirmed the effectiveness of experimental programs under development. The firing range fell completely silent as Marines processed the complete reversal of their understanding about Diana's identity, qualifications, and mission assignment. Their assumptions about civilian limitations and recreational training had been shattered by revelation of her actual military status. The morning's events represented a profound lesson about making judgments based on appearance rather than verified information. Martinez explained Diana's role in developing new training programs and equipment testing protocols that would eventually benefit standard Marines throughout the Corps. Her experimental rifle and evaluation methods represented investment in enhanced marksmanship capabilities for all personnel. The orange coloring served identification purposes during testing phases and would be modified for operational use. Diana's assessment mission included documenting standard Marine reactions to unconventional equipment and training approaches. Martinez continued. Their questioning and demands for background information had provided valuable data about assumptions and attitudes that training programs needed to address. The morning's events would contribute to improved instruction methods and equipment introduction protocols. The experimental equipment evaluation required authentic reactions from Marines who were unaware of the testing program's objectives. Diana's civilian contractor cover story ensured genuine responses that revealed actual attitudes toward advanced training and specialized equipment. Their skepticism and aggressive questioning represented normal reactions that program developers needed to understand and address. Marines began recognizing how their behavior throughout the morning had violated fundamental military courtesy when directed toward superior personnel conducting official duties. Their mockery and demands for information had demonstrated failure to maintain proper respect for authority relationships. The revelation required immediate acknowledgement of their inappropriate conduct and renewed commitment to military bearing. Torres approached Diana with obvious embarrassment about his betting pool and aggressive questioning of her qualifications and range access authorization. His assumptions about civilian limitations had led to completely inappropriate behavior towards senior military personnel. The situation demanded formal apology and recognition of his fundamental errors in judgment and military courtesy. Kowalski similarly acknowledged his inappropriate comments and behavior throughout the morning while Diana had conducted official evaluation business. His mockery of her equipment and questioning of her training background had violated basic military courtesy principles. The revelation of her actual status required complete reassessment of his assumptions and behavior standards. Fleming recognized that his repeated dismissive comments about sporting equipment and recreational training had targeted experimental military technology and elite instruction programs. His aggressive questioning of her authority to use military facilities had been directed towards superior personnel conducting authorized duties. The magnitude of his misunderstanding required fundamental reconsideration of his judgment processes. Diana responded to their embarrassment with professional courtesy appropriate for her senior status and instructional responsibilities. The morning's events had provided valuable evaluation data about standard Marine attitudes and assumptions that would improve future training programs. Their reactions represented learning opportunities rather than disciplinary matters requiring formal action. Martinez emphasized that Diana's assessment mission would continue with other Marine units to complete comprehensive evaluation of experimental equipment and training methodologies. Her findings would influence Corps-wide adoption of enhanced marksmanship programs and equipment upgrades. The morning's activities represented important contribution to Marine Corps development despite the misunderstandings that had occurred. The range gradually returned to normal training operations as Marines processed the complete reversal of their understanding about Diana's identity and mission. Her exceptional shooting abilities now appeared routine rather than impossible when viewed within proper context of specialized training and equipment evaluation. The morning had provided profound lessons about assumptions, military courtesy, and respect for expertise regardless of initial appearances. Marines remained at rigid attention while the complete magnitude of their morning's behavior became clear in the aftermath of Martinez's revelation. Their aggressive questioning and mockery had been directed toward Gunnery Sergeant Diana Castellanos, one of the Marine Corps' most elite marksmanship instructors. The situation demanded immediate acknowledgement of their violations of military courtesy and fundamental respect for authority. Colonel Martinez addressed their conduct with a seriousness that such breaches of military bearing required. Throughout the morning, they had failed to maintain proper respect for superior personnel while she conducted official duties. Their assumptions about civilian limitations had led to inappropriate behavior that violated basic military courtesy principles regardless of their misunderstanding about her status. Kowalski faced formal counseling about his repeated mockery and aggressive questioning of superior military personnel throughout the qualification session. His comments about toy guns and civilian training had targeted experimental equipment and elite instruction programs. Martinez emphasized that assumptions based on appearance rather than verified information represented fundamental failures in military judgment and courtesy standards. Torres received similar counseling about his betting pool and dismissive attitude towards superior personnel conducting official evaluation business. His $20 wager against Diana hitting targets had demonstrated profound ignorance about advanced military capabilities and specialized training programs. The incident required comprehensive reassessment of his assumptions about expertise and proper military respect. Fleming's aggressive questioning about range access authorization and training credentials had violated appropriate protocols when directed toward authorized personnel conducting official duties. His repeated demands for background information had interfered with legitimate military operations. Martinez stressed that proper military bearing required respectful treatment of all personnel, regardless of initial impressions about their status or capabilities. Diana approached the assembled Marines with unexpected grace and professional courtesy appropriate for her senior instructor status. Rather than demanding apologies or formal disciplinary action, she offered to provide advanced training that would benefit their marksmanship development. The offer demonstrated leadership principles that transformed confrontation into educational opportunity. She explained that the bright orange rifle coloring served specific instructional purposes during equipment testing and safety protocols. The distinctive appearance aided in training identification and visibility requirements during evaluation phases. Operational versions would feature standard military coloring once testing phases were completed and equipment approved for general adoption throughout Marine Corps training programs. Torres asked about the experimental ammunition he had examined earlier, wondering if specialized loads contributed to her exceptional accuracy. Diana confirmed the cartridges were completely standard issue fired with advanced technique and environmental compensation rather than enhanced ballistics. Superior marksmanship resulted from training and skill application rather than equipment advantages or modified ammunition. Fleming requested information about the specialized training programs Diana supervised and development responsibilities she maintained within Special Operations Training Group. Her background included instruction at Scout Sniper School and advanced marksmanship program development for enhanced Marine capabilities. The programs represented career advancement opportunities for Marines demonstrating appropriate aptitude and commitment. Martinez announced that Diana would conduct a voluntary advanced marksmanship workshop for interested personnel during the following week. The training session would provide instruction in precision shooting techniques and environmental compensation methods that produced exceptional accuracy. Marines who had questioned her abilities throughout the morning now showed eager interest in learning from acknowledged expertise. The Marines who had mocked Diana's equipment and questioned her qualifications now approached with genuine respect and enthusiasm for advanced training opportunities. Their transformation from skeptics to students demonstrated the educational value of the morning's revelations. Professional instruction from elite personnel represented significant career development possibilities they had not previously recognized. Diana began demonstrating precision shooting principles while the firing range transformed into an impromptu classroom environment. Her instruction covered breathing techniques, environmental compensation, and equipment optimization that characterized advanced marksmanship training. Former mockers became attentive students as she shared knowledge developed through years of specialized instruction and operational experience. Brooks observed how preconceptions and assumptions had nearly prevented valuable learning opportunities that could benefit all range personnel. The morning's events demonstrated the importance of maintaining open minds about training possibilities and respecting expertise regardless of initial appearances. Professional development required recognition of superior knowledge and willingness to learn from qualified instructors. The range became a learning environment as Diana explained precision shooting fundamentals that exceeded standard military marksmanship instruction. Her teaching methods incorporated competition techniques and specialized training approaches developed for elite military programs. Marines absorb information that would enhance their shooting capabilities and potentially qualify them for advanced training opportunities. Kowalski admitted his mistakes openly while requesting consideration for advanced training programs that might lead to specialized assignments. His behavior throughout the morning had demonstrated poor judgment, but genuine interest in improvement showed potential for development. Diana provided information about Scout Sniper School application requirements and preparation standards for interested candidates. Diana outlined the demanding physical and mental requirements for Scout Sniper School admission, along with preliminary training recommendations for serious applicants. The program demanded exceptional commitment and specialized aptitude that few Marines possessed. Proper preparation required dedicated training and professional mentorship from qualified instructors familiar with selection standards. Fleming expressed interest in specialized weapons testing and development programs related to Diana's equipment evaluation mission. His background in mechanical systems and attention to detail might suit technical aspects of experimental equipment assessment. Diana mentioned career opportunities within training development commands that utilized engineering skills for program advancement. Martinez documented the morning's incident as a comprehensive case study for military courtesy training and assumption management education. The events provided valuable lessons about respect for expertise and proper protocols for interacting with unfamiliar personnel. Training programs would incorporate these lessons to prevent similar situations and enhance professional development opportunities. Torres asked about application procedures for advanced marksmanship programs and preliminary qualifications required for specialized training consideration. His demonstrated interest and willingness to acknowledge mistakes suggested potential for development under proper instruction. Diana provided specific guidance about preparation requirements and application timeline for upcoming selection cycles. The workshop session extended beyond scheduled range time as Marines absorbed advanced instruction from elite personnel they had initially dismissed. Diana's teaching revealed the depth of knowledge and experience required for exceptional marksmanship performance. The voluntary training represented significant professional development that would benefit their future assignments and career progression. 6 weeks after the incident, Torres successfully completed qualification requirements for an advanced marksmanship program that would enhance his specialized capabilities and assignment opportunities. His dedication to improvement following the range incident had demonstrated genuine commitment to professional development. The specialized training represented significant advancement in his military career trajectory. Fleming received approval for transfer to a specialized weapons testing unit based on Diana's recommendation about his technical aptitude and interest in equipment development programs. His mechanical background and attention to detail suited requirements for experimental equipment evaluation and testing protocols. The assignment represented career advancement into specialized technical fields. Kowalski submitted his application for Scout Sniper School following months of preparation based on guidance Diana had provided during the workshop sessions. His commitment to intensive training and professional development had transformed his initial poor judgment into dedicated pursuit of elite military programs. The application represented significant personal and professional growth since the range incident. Range policies underwent comprehensive revision to include proper instructor introduction protocols that would prevent similar misunderstandings about personnel status and mission assignments. Training procedures now required clear identification of evaluation personnel and specialized program activities to maintain appropriate military courtesy. The changes ensured respectful treatment of all authorized personnel, regardless of apparent civilian status. Diana's experimental orange rifles received approval for adoption throughout Marine Corps training programs following successful evaluation and testing completion. The distinctive coloring would be modified for training applications while maintaining instructional visibility benefits. Equipment improvements represented tangible advancement in Marine marksmanship capabilities resulting from successful development and testing programs. Range training procedures incorporated lessons learned from the incident to enhance professional development opportunities and prevent discrimination based on initial assumptions about capabilities or status. Personnel training emphasized respect for expertise and proper protocols for interacting with unfamiliar instructors or evaluation teams. The improvements created more inclusive and effective training environments. Martinez implemented quarterly advanced training workshops featuring specialized instructors from various military programs to expose standard Marines to elite capabilities and career advancement opportunities. The sessions provided professional development and networking possibilities that many Marines had not previously encountered. Enhanced training exposure created pathways for motivated personnel to pursue specialized assignments. 2 months later, Diana returned to the firing range with a new group of Marines scheduled for qualification exercises. Range personnel now properly introduced her as Gunnery Sergeant Castellanos, Chief Instructor from Scout Sniper School, conducting equipment evaluation and training assessment. The introduction ensured appropriate military courtesy from the beginning of her assessment activities. The new Marine group received her instruction with immediate respect and enthusiasm for learning from acknowledged expertise. Their professional response contrasted sharply with the initial mockery and skepticism that had characterized the previous group's behavior. Proper introduction and context prevented misunderstandings while maximizing educational opportunities. Diana began her evaluation protocol with a new group while reflecting on the lessons learned from previous incidents about assumption management and professional courtesy in military training environments. Her mission continued to provide valuable data for training program development while offering educational opportunities for standard Marine personnel. The work contributed to enhanced capabilities throughout the Corps. The bright orange experimental rifles drew interested questions rather than mockery from Marines who understood their instructor's credentials and equipment evaluation mission. Professional curiosity replaced skeptical dismissal as Marines recognized opportunities to learn from elite military programs. The transformation demonstrated the importance of proper context and respectful introduction protocols. Brooks observed the improved dynamics resulting from policy changes and proper personnel introduction procedures. Training sessions now maximized learning opportunities while maintaining appropriate military courtesy throughout evaluation activities. The professional environment created optimal conditions for both assessment objectives and Marine development. Range operations continued with enhanced protocols that ensured respectful treatment of specialized personnel while providing valuable training opportunities for standard Marines. The improvements represented lasting institutional changes that benefited both evaluation missions and professional development programs. Military courtesy and respect for expertise became standard rather than accidental elements of training operations. Diana completed her equipment evaluation with comprehensive data about Marine reactions to experimental technology and training methodologies under realistic field conditions. Her findings would influence Corps-wide adoption of enhanced marksmanship programs and equipment improvements. The successful mission demonstrated the value of properly conducted assessment activities for military advancement. The final shooting demonstration concluded with perfect accuracy that Marines now properly appreciated as expert-level performance rather than impossible civilian achievement. Understanding context and credentials transformed perception from skepticism to respect for elite military capabilities. Professional acknowledgement replaced mockery as appropriate response to superior expertise and advanced training programs.